Hello, and welcome to the Mothers of All Crime. This is a podcast where we deep dive into mothers involved in infamous crimes and scandals. I'm Monica, and this is Crystal.
Welcome back to the Mothers of All Crime. This week we have a very special topic. We're talking about Wendy Williams. She is a radio personality, talk show host, international celebrity, and someone I tangentially know. And there have been a lot of recent scandals, dramas, and publicity and court issues, all kinds of things. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on with Wendy, what's happened, what we think is going to happen in the future, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Wendy Williams is an interesting one because you have her public persona that a lot of us saw with her uprising and becoming popular. And then we saw
Mm-hmm.
what a lot of the public perceived as like a crash out. Um, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, because she's so public, it was on like live TV and it was documented. So, and then she kind of disappeared. I think prior to us having a conversation about Wendy, the last thing I remembered about her was her having some substance abuse issues, crashing out on TV, and then I like never heard about her again. And I just kind of assumed she like pulled out
Mm-hmm.
of public eye until you brought in some really interesting stuff that I think is really everyone should know about and that I as like a normal person didn't know.
Yes, I think that I know exactly what you're talking about, and it definitely has opened a Pandora's box for me, where now I've watched all of the recent Wendy Williams documentaries, watched a bunch of interviews, read articles, watched her family members' interviews, and I'm like a little bit obsessed. But the way this came to my attention is that my mother grew up with Wendy. They met in first grade, and they were friends through elementary school, middle school, high school, on the marching band together. So they know each other from childhood. And years ago, my mother was in the audience at the show. Wendy saw her. They kind of reconnected. They've seen each other at some high school reunions, but they're not especially close anymore. Obviously, lives move on. They went to school together in the 80s. A lot has changed for both of them
Yeah.
since then. But recently, my mom heard from Wendy for the first time in years. She got a voicemail from Wendy, which I can play on here if the audience would want to hear it.
Yeah, and your mom obviously gave you this voicemail. We didn't steal it from anybody. So, I think it's a
Hmm.
good
Yeah, we didn't
start.
steal it from
Yeah.
anybody. I think Wendy wants people to know this information. That's at least what I've gathered from all of this. I think Wendy is reaching out. She wants people to know what's going on. And this was literally her reaching out because she wanted my mother to know what was going on. So I'm going to play the voicemail and we'll pick up after that.
Diane, you'll never believe who this is. Diane Sennett, this is Wendy Williams. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Okay. I'm calling from a landline phone. I only have a landline phone, and I'll talk to you about that and more. Diane Sennett, when can I talk to you? When can I call you? Should I, how about this? I'm going to call you at 2 p.m. today. It's Sunday. And I'll see if you answer the phone. Diane, I cannot believe I found your telephone number. Holy shit. Okay, bye.
So that's Wendy Williams leaving my mom a voicemail. And it came from a number that said unknown caller. And that's why she missed the call and then checked the voicemail and thought it was really odd, and thought it was odd that she said she only had a landline phone and didn't leave any callback number to reach her at. So throughout the day, Wendy called a couple more times. She finally got my mom on the phone and they talked. And Wendy told her that she is essentially in a conservatorship against her will, that she's being held in essentially an assisted living home. She is in a facility in New York City. She's on the 5th floor, and she is in a unit that is for memory impaired people. So most of the people that are on her floor are in their 90s, have advanced stages of dementia and Alzheimer's. And she told my mom that she is not free to leave and that she cannot receive incoming calls. She can only make outgoing calls. She does not have a cell phone or a computer. She just has this landline for access.
Which is obviously a drastic change from the lavish lifestyle of
Yeah.
a celebrity and popular TV host and all of the other amenities that she had before. And I think also that's not something that was public, at least not to the extreme that everyone knew. I'm sure people did, but like
So
it wasn't making a national headline until later.
Yes and no. So Wendy had her show on TV from like 2008 to 2021, but the last few years were marked with hiatuses that were related to different health problems that she was having. She pretty famously passed out during a live taping of her show while she was dressed as the Statue of Liberty, and that was later revealed to be related to Graves' disease. She has a thyroid condition. She also has lymphedema and other medical problems. She also came out on the show and said that she was living in a sober living facility at some point because she was struggling with substance abuse. And then there was a pretty public unraveling of her marriage when her husband had an affair and got someone else pregnant, and they ended up divorcing, which is obviously terrible. But Kevin, her ex-husband, was not only her husband and the father of her only child, he was also her executive producer and
Which is
business
always a
partner.
great choice.
And so yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to do that when everything's great, but when that person betrays you, turns on you, then you are not just losing your husband, you're losing so many other things.
I think it's
And
common in
so
like the early parts of your career, right? And then I would think that like as you grow bigger and bigger, you would want your family to be less in charge for those exact reasons. Like, yes, quote, your husband will always have your best interest, but like, what if it doesn't work out? Like, they also have a very
yeah,
strong, like, relation of like your success is directly impacts their life, so like they might manipulate certain things without you even knowing.
definitely. And I think that Wendy trusted him with a lot, and he clearly didn't deserve that trust and totally went around her and violated it and wasn't supportive while she's dealing with her medical problems, with her substance abuse. Like, that's your wife, this is your responsibility, and he should have been protecting her in the business arena as well. But sucks, you can't trust anyone. Even someone you're married to for over 20 years, apparently you can't trust. So he's more or less out of the picture now, but they still have a son together, Kevin Jr., who is an adult and also a big factor in the situation that she is now in, because in January of 2022, Wells Fargo froze her bank accounts because they thought that she needed a guardian because there were family members, which everyone's very careful about saying who the family members are. It sounds to me, this is my interpretation of it, that it's primarily Kevin Jr., it's primarily her son who was accessing her funds and spending beyond what he was supposed to. And Wells Fargo thought that she was being taken advantage of, and she disputed this initially, and a judge ended up awarding a temporary financial guardian, which is Sabrina Morrissey, that's her name, and she is now Wendy's conservator and in charge of all of her finances. And when you're in charge of someone's finances and you're able to act as them and make all of their medical decisions, Wendy basically can't do anything herself, because at least spend money at that point she could not do it. She ended up going to a wellness facility. Some people think she was in rehab. I couldn't find anything definitive. And then Wendy got diagnosed with aphasia and frontotemporal dementia in 2023. And in the year of 2022, while Wendy was initially in the guardianship, having some very serious medical problems, she was filming a Lifetime documentary that ended up airing in February of 2024. But it was documenting her since 2022. And I watched that recently. She is really, really not okay in that documentary. She is slurring her words. She can barely talk. She's not able to function properly. She is making some really poor makeup decisions, and there's just an air of her being very ill. And so I watched that, and then I watched more things of how she is recently, and it is shocking, honestly. As someone who grew up seeing her on TV, having an idea of who she was, hearing her podcast, like in the Lifetime documentary, she is unrecognizable. So I saw that and I kind of thought, okay, maybe she needs to be in a conservatorship. But now Wendy is telling everyone that will listen that she is not incapacitated. She has been calling in to podcasts. She has been appearing on The View. She did a documentary with TMZ with Harvey Livin, where she is talking on the phone and they have a camera pointed at the window as she's crying through the window saying, I don't belong in here. I need to get out. I'm in prison. I'm trapped. And it's just the most wild thing to watch. So it kind of brings us to where we are now, where Wendy is in a facility under a conservatorship, not free to leave, and somehow her aphasia and dementia have improved to the point that she can have normal phone calls. I just it blows my mind.
It's the diagnoses that are interesting. Because like you mentioned, a big thing for me was when I heard she was in a facility, I didn't know she was under conservatorship. Like, to me, that was never something that was strong enough in the news that ever made it to me. It might have been, and I might have missed it, but I think when you say conservatorship, my brain automatically goes to Britney Spears, obviously, because of that whole fiasco.
Sure.
And with all her documentaries and stuff coming
absolutely.
out, my brain remembered like the media kind of going after her because of the addiction issues, which I don't think is totally fair, because most celebrities, unfortunately, in that age bracket, almost all of them, not all of them, a good portion of them have had some stint in rehab at least once. Like, and I think they really zoned in on her.
Yeah.
And when these documentaries were coming out,
Mm-hmm.
right now, it's my perception that like everyone and their mom is having a documentary about their life. So I just assumed it was another one of like, I'm Wendy, here's my childhood life and blah, blah, blah. And which is great because they're super interesting. But like, it was just one of those things. I'm like, oh, here's another person's life story. Cool. And I never watched it until you brought it up. Because again, it was something that conservatorships aren't super public. It's not something that people want to know that it's happening. And I did the same thing with the 2022 rehab. The only thing that I could find was they said September of 22 was a like 2-month facility check-in, but that was reported to People magazine. So like take that with a grain of salt. So But again, that was September, and the conservatorship happened, I think you said February, if I remember. So it was already in the works. You got to wonder if at that point, were they still trying to like, okay, did it go in with good intention and now has gone too far? Like, did she need some kind of assistance at the beginning? Not necessarily financially, but like having someone look at her and be like, you're going to rehab if you want to or not. Not necessarily always the worst thing, because sometimes when you're in active addiction, you don't know that you need the help. And sometimes you got to force that onto someone. Not that I'm saying doing forcing is good, but I'm just trying to think of like how it could have started. But the big thing is is the financials. And I have found a lot of documents that directly name her son. 100% their concern was the son.
It's more just in the documentaries.
Alluding.
Everyone's dancing around it. But absolutely. She also seems to blame his friends, like her son's friends, which I think is a classic parent move where it's like, well, my child wouldn't do something to me. It's obviously he's being influenced by other people around him.
Might not be
so I think
totally
that because
untrue,
she herself,
right? Because if you are a friend of like a super rich famous person, you're gonna be like, hey, you can do X, Y, and Z. Why don't you do this? Like, I could see how she could get to that. But again, like, I think you're also right. Like, probably some of it is him being used to getting access to an extreme amount of money. This isn't someone who just did 2 or 3 good films and like did okay. Like, Wendy Williams, her career is quite impressive if you look from the beginning. Like, it's amazing. She's very,
absolutely.
90, 80, late 80s, early 90s is when she kind of started with radio and then just took off from there. Like, it's quite impressive.
Yeah. And she's written books. She started charities. She's done some very famous interviews. She is a recognizable, legit celebrity. And to me, that makes it seem even like this couldn't happen to her. But with Britney, it was a different situation because her family was controlling the conservatorship.
Right.
And in this situation, Wendy's son is the problem. So he's not going to be her conservator, but she has other relatives saying that they were not given any opportunity to serve as her conservator, even if they would have had her best interests at heart, and they don't seem to support the situation that she's in right now.
Yeah, one thing that the son makes me feel icky the more that I've read about him. I actually saw one thing that her son publicly stated that she has dementia that was alcohol induced. And the more that like I feel like because there's these other diagnoses being made or claims being made, having her son reinforce some of that, regardless if they're true or not, because like you said, like she's very cognitively there in these interviews and things like that. But over the last 3 years, you would think that there would be some kind of question there or a reevaluation. Like, I personally haven't experienced anyone who has dementia to an extreme level, but my brain says like if you have, it would be something you check in on, like progressive, and it's going to get worse over time. Not necessarily maybe in 3 years, but when you have her saying she doesn't have any of these issues and she's there against her will, her son, I don't want to say agreeing, but like kind of supporting the reason that she's being kept there, and her other family being like, there are people who are willing to be fine. If you want to have her under conservatorship, fine, but like give it to a family member. Why is it this third party person if it's just the son who's the problem? She has siblings. Like, she has, I think her parents are still alive, right? Like, they're older, but they're alive. Like,
her father is alive.
Okay,
he's 94.
So probably not the best choice, but like siblings.
But she has siblings, and her niece Alex Finney is in a lot of these documentaries and is a outspoken Free Wendy advocate. She thinks her aunt sounds normal, that she is normal, that maybe she's not able to manage her finances and that does need to be handled by a third party, but her medical decisions and her physical where she is every day, the family does not think that this should be the guardian or the conservator's call.
Like, yeah.
So, and it's interesting that I do want to go talk a little bit about the dementia, because a lot of people are saying that she has alcohol related dementia. And I actually think that that is Wendy's best argument for getting out of her conservatorship,
Mm.
because I've been looking into it. And if you have frontotemporal dementia, if you have that condition, it is progressive. It's degenerative. It is not going to get better at all. She did, at least in the time of her Lifetime documentary, have a lot of the symptoms of this type of dementia. And it is not something that can be 100% diagnosed by a certain test. There are MRIs that can be done to look at the temporal lobe, if it's atrophying in the brain, but sometimes it looks normal. And I obviously don't have access to Wendy's MRIs, but that's also something that you can see in alcohol related dementia. There can be shrinking in the brain in the frontotemporal lobes. So the difference really between alcohol related dementia and any other type of dementia is that if you remove the alcohol, people can have huge recoveries and regain their memory. They don't have aphasia all of a sudden. They're able to speak, they're able to comprehend. And like it, love it, hate it, Wendy has been kept away from alcohol since she's been under this extreme conservatorship, and she has recovered. And she sounds way better. And I'm not with her all the time, but I know that she's having a lot of conversations with a lot of different people, because she's calling other people that she went to high school and middle school and elementary school with. And everyone thinks, wow, she sounds fine. And if someone is having progressive, debilitating symptoms of dementia, they are not going to suddenly sound better. And she does, which makes me think that this is alcohol related dementia. It was a misdiagnosis. And if she can stay sober, then she doesn't need to be in a facility for people with Alzheimer's and progressing dementia. It's just not an appropriate place for her.
Yeah. And well, there was another diagnosis though too, wasn't there? Not just the dementia.
So it was the other one was aphasia.
Yeah.
And aphasia is an impairment in a person's ability to comprehend or formulate language because of a dysfunction in specific brain
See,
regions.
that's the one I
But
think
they thought that the
is
aphasia was
more argumentative, because like she's having interviews, she's having like clearly she can talk. If she has strong aphasia, she
yeah,
wouldn't be able to leave a conversation,
for sure.
right? Like, I don't know. It's
Yes.
the whole.
But that is a symptom of dementia, is aphasia. So it's like that would be the cause of it. And she did seem to have symptoms that seemed like aphasia and dementia in the Lifetime documentary, which I think it's also very important to point out that her conservator was supposed to be in control of Wendy at the time of that filming. She had already taken over. But then when the documentary was going to go to air, her conservator, Sabrina, sued Lifetime to try to prevent it from airing at
Oh,
all, saying that they
interesting.
took advantage of Wendy and she wasn't in her right mind and this shouldn't be filmed and this shouldn't be aired. She didn't win though.
Clearly.
It was aired.
Yeah, the whole thing is
Yeah.
interesting, and I do think it's important to note that this is happening in New York. And New York is a state that is very tight with their records and what's available to the public. Obviously, medical
Yeah.
records are tight no matter where you go with HIPAA, but when it comes to court documents, the states really vary. You have states like Florida with the sunshine laws that you pretty much have access to any and all information if it went through the public court system. But the state of New York is far less open with their information. So a lot of the information that we're getting is from the family members, from these documentaries, from articles that are being written. There's little to none that at least I could find, I don't know about you, that is hardcore fact evidence because New York just doesn't publish this stuff without subpoenas.
Yeah. So it is all hard to get to, and anything I was able to look at, I could only see the beginning blurbs of. For a lot of the filings that have been happening, I can't read the whole thing. Which obviously I guess it's for privacy reasons. It does make sense, but for this purpose it is harder to
Right.
research. And her medical information should be her business, and that is not really something that's appropriate to be public information. The lawsuits, I suppose, are also like, you could make an argument that it's for her privacy, but yeah, in New York, everything is so hard to access. You get snippets of court documents unless you have, I suppose, an actual reason that you need access to them,
I think we have a
which
great reason,
it's
personally.
curiosity. It's research for the podcast. I did find a legal document from Sabrina Morrissey describing Wendy as cognitively impaired, permanently disabled, and legally incapacitated. And she says that she will continue to be, and that it is degenerative and she won't get better, and so she needs to be under this. There is a lot of backlash, though. There are a lot of people trying to get Wendy out. There has been, similar to the Free Britney movement, there's a Free Wendy movement trending on TikTok, on X. People are, especially as the documentaries come out and Wendy keeps trying to make contact with the public, people are trying to support her. There's GoFundMe's. There are ways that you can sign petitions online to try to get her out. Her husband, her ex-husband, I should be very, very clear. Her ex-husband has recently, like today, filed something that is supposed to be him trying to sue to get her out of the conservatorship. Only read a little bit of it,
Which
but
I
I hope that
like.
he has very good intentions, obviously, and that he's not trying to get in control of her money.
Yeah, the husband thing is tough. The husband
Yeah,
thing's tough because,
tough.
like, they obviously had a very long marriage. He made some decisions that weren't good. But you never know what their relationship was behind closed doors. We don't know the full picture of it. Obviously, they did get divorced, but I think there were probably times that they got through really well. And he was her manager for a long time. I'm hoping being the key word, that the manager side of him and the caring side of him is like, hey, regardless if it worked out or not, like, this isn't where she should be. Like, there are other people who are willing to step up, that this isn't what needs to be happening. So I'm hoping it's from a good place.
I mean, I really hope so, because even if Wendy is too ill to take care of herself, which I don't see any evidence of, it seems to me that she is able to get herself dressed, she's able to feed herself, she's able to bathe herself. That's what everyone is saying that actually has contact with her. So I don't know if she needs a full-time caregiver, but even if she did, she could be at home receiving that kind of
She
care where
can
she
be in a
still has
bougie ass home
freedom.
paying one. Like, it's not like she
Yeah.
can't afford it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And where she is not inexpensive. She says it's $18,000 a month. I'm sure that she could get a full-time caregiver for that cost to live in her home with her.
Oh, 100%.
She could probably have several shifts of nurses and people and drivers. Maybe she shouldn't have a driver's license. I don't know. Maybe she needs a sober coach. I don't know. Maybe she needs someone to be managing her money. Probably. But I don't think any of that necessitates her being in a lockdown unit in a dementia wing of an assisted living facility. She is in this documentary on TMZ saying that she is on the 5th floor and she is not allowed to take the elevator down to the gym on the 3rd floor. She's not allowed to go to the lobby and walk outside. She is literally locked in.
And I will say, from a legitimate dementia patient perspective, these are security risks that need to be in place.
Sure.
Because if
Sure.
the other people who are on the ward that are suffering from this horrible disease, them going to a third floor is a huge security issue. It's a safety issue. Like, it's
Mhm.
because she's in the situation she's in that it feels so drastic. I just didn't want to put that out of
Right.
perspective of like, it's not the unit, like it's just her situation.
Of course.
Because
Of course.
like you said, like she shouldn't necessarily, and also I think for me it's not the conservatorship as much as it is the placement. Because I think you kind
Mhm.
of mentioned that, like, listen, someone needs to be in charge of her money. That feels fair, like considering a bunch of factors. But also, like, how many people who
Right.
have that kind of money are managing their money anyway? Like, this all stemmed from
Yeah.
someone from Wells Fargo in charge of her money. So maybe there needs
Right.
to be a team of people in charge of that, and then like a care team, or like you have a mental health coach, you have a therapy coach, you have a sober coach. Like, get a team for her and put her in a facility that is better suited for her. If she needs help, that's fine, but put her somewhere that is actually going to help her if that is your concern. Because right now, this is not the concern, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
not effective.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I don't think that Wendy has been hospitalized previously. She has lived in sober living facilities previously. She's gone to wellness centers, gone to rehabs. I don't think that she is unwilling to seek treatment because those are all things that she did prior to being under a conservatorship.
Right.
But it's about appropriate treatment. And maybe, I don't know, but maybe at the time that she entered into this facility, maybe that is what she needed. But right now,
Right.
it seems like extremely inappropriate. And Wendy is begging for help. And I do want to talk about her reevaluation and what's going to happen with that. There was an incident in March of this year where Wendy threw a note out of her fifth floor window and it just said "Help Wendy" on it. And this ended up resulting in a wellness call. And so the police came and she was brought to Lenox Hill Hospital and did a mental health evaluation and got a perfect 10 out of 10 on this evaluation.
Again. So why is she there?
Exactly. So it is supposed to be something that's going to be reevaluated in court. But I don't know what the timeline is like for that. And I don't know, even when this goes to court, how quickly it can be resolved. But if there are people suing on her behalf, I don't know how effective that's going to be, but I got to think it's going to help. And then her being able to communicate with the outside world to the point of being taken to a hospital to be evaluated and the physicians clearing her essentially, and then she still has to go back to the assisted living. It's just it's wild. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. So I found this one article, I think it was People, where her original rescheduling of evaluation was March of this year. And then she supposedly denied participating in it.
Mm,
And then it got rescheduled again. And
mm,
her guardian, Sabrina, made a statement saying that she's now ready to reschedule the scans and appointments as long as Wendy's willing to do it. And it feels very contradictory. Like, if Wendy's doing all these things, it to the outside perspective, you would think then she's on board with doing this reevaluation. So that also is bizarre. She may have originally said no out of like anger, like how dare you, like this is ridiculous, I'm not doing that, like um but the fact that now it's rescheduled again with the way the court system is, like it's going to be a while, because unfortunately you don't most of the time deny a court date and then get booked next month. Like, it tends to, all right, you're back at the bottom of the pile then. Like, I don't
yeah.
know.
I'm hoping that Kevin Sr.'s lawsuit gets things moving a little bit because it just seems like she's living in a state of suspended animation and she describes her conservatorship as emotional abuse and financial abuse, because this person is also getting paid to do this. It's not free.
Well,
So
they're court appointed, so it's not like they make any more money because it's Wendy. At least I
so
assume.
so I think, though, on the TMZ documentary, they were saying that she does get paid. Hold on. That she does get paid from Wendy, and that the court has authorized that.
That's bizarre, because if she's court appointed, Wendy, I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about conservatorship to make a solid answer, but my first instinct would be, if it's court appointed, the person shouldn't be responsible for paying them. But also, I don't know, because I'm trying to think of like how that works civilly. Well, you're not guaranteed an attorney if you're civil. So in the criminal side, you're guaranteed representation and the court pays for your representation. If you're given like a probation officer or a social worker or a case manager, those are all paid by the state. It would be very interesting if conservatorships and financials appointed to you also are paid by the state, or if, like, I don't know, having Wendy pay for it feels weird to me.
So I don't know 100%, but I'm looking at an article that's saying that she's mishandling $400,000, and other articles saying that she was paid $30,000 initially and then has been working for Wendy for free. But I don't know.
And then again, like, mismanagement of funds is perspective, right? Like, she might think that she's doing the right thing in Wendy's best interest versus obviously not. Like, that's all in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
And like, if it is a court appointed person, I'm going from like a criminal side case manager, because that's my understanding best. They're typically so overworked and have such a big caseload. Like, they don't have the time to get to know every single person they're working on, which is awful. And that's a tangent for another time. But like, you got to wonder how knowledgeable Sabrina is about Wendy specifically and her specific situation. Because if you're handed a file and say this person is incapable of doing anything, you've been assigned to do X, Y, and Z, you're going to read the file and you go in with a mindset of she has all these issues, blah, 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 blah. Versus if she spent long-term time with Wendy, I wonder if like her opinion would change. But a lot of them don't always have the ability to do that. Trying to give Sabrina a little bit of a benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, that could be. I do see articles that say that she's been accused of stealing $30 million from a previous client, but
maybe
it
not
doesn't
then.
look like she was. Yeah, but it's not like she has been convicted of that. Like, these are just articles, but it's things that she's been accused of, and I'm seeing articles from 2024 and 2025. And Kevin's lawsuit is for $250 million, but I don't think that's against the Guardian. I think that's against New York.
I would assume New York.
Yeah.
Because they're technically the one who put her in the conservatorship, not the attorney.
Oh, you know what? Actually, it says that he filed a lawsuit against her court-appointed guardian, Wells Fargo Clearing Services, American Express, and others, challenging the legitimacy of her guardianship. There are dozens of defendants.
Gotcha. So he pretty much did, anybody who's involved is going in that suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he filed it in New York, but it's not against New York specifically. It's against the individuals named. And I could believe that there is money being mishandled or money being inappropriately allocated this way or that way. And I would like to think that people who run conservatorships or have access to someone who has dementia's finances, that they would not take advantage of their power, and that the money would go towards that person's care and nowhere else. But I don't think it's that hard to believe that if her own son would steal from her and fuck her over, that possibly her guardian would as well. And usually people with dementia don't get better and call you out on things. But in this case, if Wendy has recovered and she's able to see what's going on, and that's how it appears to her and to her family, maybe there's some legitimacy to that.
Yeah, and I don't know. The misconduct of handling feels like a whole separate issue. Because I don't want to like rank the problems, but like it feels like the least important. like it
Well,
was just
the
awful to
most
say.
important is Wendy having freedom to enjoy her life.
Right,
And that
because
a
I think
60-year-old woman without dementia shouldn't be in a facility like this.
yeah, like, and I hate to say like her mismanagement of her money is like not a big deal, but like in the grand scheme of what she's dealing with, like
Sure.
I hate to say
Yeah.
like $30,000 is not a big deal to her compared to her freedom. And honestly, probably her overall living expenses are $30,000 because celebrities have crazy bills because you make crazy money, so it's all proportionate. But
Sure. But right now she's living in a studio with a
right,
bathroom and a closet and a
and that's what I'm
TV.
saying is
And she
like
doesn't have her
she needs
luxurious
to.
life. Yeah.
People need to focus more on the fact that she's somewhere that her and her family believe she shouldn't be against her decision and her family's decision. And because I think this would be a very different conversation if her whole family was like, no, she does have issues. And just Wendy was saying that she didn't. Regardless if it's true or not, like that's a lot easier to keep her there. When her whole family is saying that she's not, her ex-husband, her siblings, friends from like up and down, they're all saying that she's not, and her, someone should be looking into it.
Yeah. Definitely. I agree. And I think that she is making desperate pleas for help. And I hope that the courts hear her. And I hope that she gets somewhere safe and is not unable to just enjoy a normal life. Because I think that she is demonstrating that she's capable of participating in the normal world. So I hope that she gets those opportunities, and I hope that it goes even better than Britney getting out of her conservatorship, because I think that that has drawn some negative feedback as well, because there was such a hype for getting Britney out of her conservatorship, and then her public appearances and social media posts have led some people to think that maybe it was better for her to be under conservatorship and not have access to the internet in the way that Wendy doesn't right now. But
I also
just
think that's looking at an age difference, right? Like Britney went in so young to a lot of these things versus Wendy is a grown woman, lived her life, clearly made it this far, doing okay, yet is now in this situation. And I think what you said at the beginning really hit the nail of like, it's crazy to think about this happening to someone like her. But it does. And at the end of the day, celebrities are idolized, but they're still just people. And at the end of the day, they should be respected like any other person, regardless of who they are, who they have been, what they have, and be respected and treated with dignity. And there's a lot of that just not happening for her.
Absolutely. And she has not been convicted of any crimes. She is not violent. She has never been deemed to be unsafe for others or even for herself. She's not going to harm the community. There's really no benefit to keeping her locked up unless it's to keep her away from her family, because some of them are exploiting her, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't get to participate in life anymore. I feel like she's being punished and she's the victim in this situation.
Yeah, I really wonder what the son is feeding them. Because
Ugh.
there has to be something that's not public record that put her there to begin with and has kept her there that long. Because there, again, there's always a way, but there's just something in me that's like someone close to her is playing both sides. Someone close to her is helping her, working against her and helping the system keep her where she is. It just feels like there's no way that the state alone is doing this. You know what I mean? Like it feels that you have to have some inside person close to her being like, yeah, you're right. She shouldn't be like, this is all like really going to help her in the long run. It just feels like there's something icky about it. I
Yeah,
don't know who it
definitely. And
is, but
I think her son is 80 to 85% of the issue here. But I do think that at the time that Wendy was filming her Lifetime documentary, which I do recommend that people watch, and then immediately afterwards watch Saving Wendy on Tubi, because it's just a 2-year difference and the contrast is wild. But I could see how that person that I saw in the Lifetime documentary, how she could be diagnosed with these things and how she maybe does need a facility and maybe she is not able to care for herself. And I could see that, but obviously these things need to be reevaluated thoroughly and often,
100%.
especially in something that cannot be conclusively diagnosed, because there are other things that could cause any of the symptoms that were showing up at the time that she was diagnosed with. There's nothing specific that says that she definitely has this and has this degenerative disorder. I think her recovery speaks for itself. And yeah, I feel like I'm saying the same things over and over at a certain point, but it's just
Yeah.
mind-blowing. And I wish that there was something that we could do. I mean, Wendy, we are here trying to get the word out, and I do think that when this goes to court again, that she will be released from the conservatorship, or at least that's what I hope, because
Yeah.
I think she can speak in
I
her own
agree.
defense at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just hope that it doesn't take a long time for her to get back to court. Or even
Mhm.
if like the husband's case gets to court first, it would bring her to court and she can talk, which might speed up her process or something along those lines. Um
Yeah.
but I agree. I think we've touched on a lot of it. I think if we start going, we're going to talk about the same thing because it is just
Yeah. I
so
mean, it's
mind
cyclical.
blowing.
Yeah.
But do you have any kind of final thoughts about Wendy or her situation that you want to just reiterate, or things we haven't mentioned?
So I do want to reiterate that her ex is suing for $250 million, and he should not get that money if he wins. I hope that this is just a big number to be shocking, and that if he did win money, like that money would go to Wendy, because it just seems it seems unbelievable that he would get money even though he is not responsible for this situation, but he contributed to her unraveling and the spiral that has led to this situation and her not being protected legally. So I really hope that he does not financially benefit from all of the suffering that she's enduring. And yeah, I think that's my final thought. How about you?
Yeah, I mean the number suing like the state of New York, a number like that doesn't shock me because if you're gonna sue the state, typically people go for crazy numbers. But I do agree. I think hopefully he's suing on her behalf and not for him. Which you probably
Yeah.
could tell if we could get access to the documents, we'd probably be able to tell, but we obviously can't. But no, I think my final thought is more of just if she needs the help, give her the dignity of creating a treatment team that suits her needs. I'm a big component of, like, sometimes people get sick and sometimes people need help, and that's 100% okay. But give them the dignity of choosing how they want to deal with their condition. And she fortunately is in a position that she can afford to make these super elaborate teams if she wants to, and she should. It should be her choice on how she wants to deal with how she's feeling. And I think that's my big thing, is that it's not her choice right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And we're all rooting for you, Wendy, and we're going to put a lot of free Wendy hashtags in this. And feel free to
Woo!
sign the petitions on change.org, donate to her GoFundMe. You know, just generally talk about how wild the situation is. There is a lot of Wendy content out right now. She appeared on The View. She was on Charlemagne the God's podcast, The Breakfast Club. She has been reaching out and she has been making statements. And if you ever knew Wendy at any point in your life, she's probably already called you from her landline. So I think that we should all be listening. We should all be talking about it and, you know, not just sweep this under the rug.
Yes, we'll put the link if you're interested in the bio and all of our social media posts about Wendy that will come up with this episode. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. If you can't, the link doesn't work, etc. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'll also include the names and where the documentaries are in the description of the episode in case anybody wants to lay their eyes on Wendy themselves. All right. Well, until next week with our next mother. Have a good one.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.